Hi, welcome to Akashic Knowing TV. I am Lisa Barnett, and I am the founder of Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. I'm also the international best-selling author of 2 books on the Akashic Records. So today we are talking about karma. In this series so far, we've been speaking about your soul's plan. Now, the concept is that before you come into a body, your soul wrote a plan. It's like you said, I know what I want to do when I go to Earth this time. I'm going to use these great gifts and talents I've been learning about and strengthening over the last few hundred or few thousand years. I'm going to bring those back to the world. I'm going to finish up with my karmic patterns. I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to love and forgive. This is going to be glorious. This is the time. So many of us are experiencing that sort of energy in our lives now. And part of it is because we are ancient and wise souls. And we did come back to share our gifts and talents at this specific time in history. And right now we're in 2020, but since 2012, really the last 8 years, many of us have been very, very conscious about it being time. And this is what we've come to do, and wanting to share our gifts and talents and get them out into the world in a bigger way. But, right, the big but, but we had a traumatic childhood. We were abandoned as a child, or we had an abusive parent, or we had something really challenging happen to us. Maybe it was a physical accident or illness, but something that really affected our life. And so now we're thinking, what was that about? I've now spent the last 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years working through all of this old garbage. I've been trying to heal myself, to heal my body, to heal myself emotionally, to get over the pain and the trauma. Why in God's name would that be? Why would I create something like that in my soul's plan? And the answer truly is that your soul wanted to learn and grow. And part of the way we do that is by overcoming challenges. And so we often choose challenges that, when we look at them in life, they're traumatic. They are really crazy stuff. Sometimes it's a near-death experience, or like I say, I've seen so many of the light workers on the planet today who have come to end abuse in the world. So they've stepped into abusive families. And even though it doesn't seem likely or logical to us as humans here on Earth right now, when we're these big ancient wise souls with just huge energy, and we've had so many experiences, and we have so many talents and gifts, we think, no problem. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be the love, and I'm going to be the forgiveness, and I'm going to be the compassion, and I'm going to help these people to heal, and we're going to move forward with greater ease. And so there's a lot of what we've come to do that is connected to what we would call, or what we used to often call, is a karmic pattern. The way the Akashic Record Keepers talk about karma is that karma is about learning and growth. It is never about right or wrong or good or bad or punishment of any kind. So what I find is that when people can see some of their soul's choices in this bigger way, and they can realize that this is about having an experience that helps you to overcome a challenge, and then bring the wisdom that you have learned out into the world. Maybe you're going to write a book about it. Maybe you're some sort of teacher and you teach about it. Maybe you literally have come up with a process, a healing process that you share with humanity. Maybe it's helped hone some profound healing gifts that you've had. So not only are you working through this challenge, but you're now stepping into those gifts and talents of who you've been in so many other lives. And now you get to share that with the world. It's a beautiful, albeit not easy, process. So what I find is that when we, as people, can come to understand that in a deeper way, it helps us to let go of some of the emotional pain and trauma. And of course, as a healer, I love to do healing for everybody around the emotional pain and trauma. So I think it would be really great to do a little bit of that today. So one of the ways I do this is just by bringing everybody into the Akashic field with me. And then we can ask each and every person's record keepers, even though I'm not opening your record specifically, like if I was doing a reading for you, but I can bring you into the Akashic column of light and energy. And as we connect up to the record keepers, I ask to invite your personal record keepers to come in with us and do the healing for you, as well as we have this whole beautiful, powerful group of Akashic record keepers gathering. And we know that when two or more are gathered, we are exponentially growing the energy. It's not just two people. Now all of a sudden we have 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's just blossoming exponentially. So doing group healing is always one of my favorite things to do because of that, because I see a huge deepening. So there's a couple pieces that are coming up to work on today. I'd love to do some healing and clearing of old karmic patterns around staying hidden and staying small, because that is one of the karmic patterns and vows and even contracts, right? These often are connected and roll together. But when we can clear all these different levels and layers around a certain subject, it really opens and frees us up to bring more of our own wisdom in, to be able to step more fully into the truth of who we are as these ancient divine wise souls, to literally empower ourselves by clearing the blocks, the fear, the constriction, the old energy, emotional pain and trauma, all of those energies of guilt or shame or blame that we all hold on some level in some way or other. So there's a couple of really big soul contracts on the planet today. And I'd like to do some karmic clearing around those big soul contracts. So for example, there's a big soul contract to help to balance male and female energy again in the world, right? It's been tremendously out of balance for the last, 3,000 years. I talk about this often. We're seeing it in the world in an extreme way. And there's different things that are showing up to kind of make us more aware of it and help us to shake it loose. Things like the Me Too movement did that here in the US and probably around the world. It was really about waking up women to say, that is not okay to treat me that way. I am not your toy. I am not a possession. I am every bit as conscious, aware, and powerful as you. So you don't get to treat me in a subservient way, to abuse me, whether it's emotional or sexual. You don't get to pretend that women are not equal. And this is part of rebalancing divine feminine, divine masculine, and just really balancing male female energy. Of course, it's so important to bring it back into balance, not women higher, men lower. We don't want to do the opposite of what we've been at. We truly want to bring it back into balance, because it's from that place that we can all live in this really heart-centered space where we can really be love in so much easier, bigger sort of way, and connection. And when we bring these energies into balance and we can all open our hearts, then we're having loving relationships filled with ease, filled with unconditional love. We move out of the place of judgment and power and struggle and more than and less than. So I'd love to do some energy and karmic, because these are huge old karmic patterns that have been on the planet for thousands of years now. So when we go and do this together, we can clear kind of some of the stories in different lifetimes, and they might be, there's a couple of them that are coming up. Some of them are lifetimes in which we've been slaves, whether we were male or female, where we've been enslaved or in servitude in a way which might as well have been enslavement, even if they paid us a pittance. There is the fall of the goddess temples of the divine feminine back thousands and thousands of years ago, when the warriors really came in and crushed a lot of the towns and the villages, and you know, killed the wise women and killed a lot of the women and children, and took over the towns and the villages and made the women often their slaves or their prostitutes. So that was a huge way to disempower women. So let's come together in the Akashic Records and do some group healing on these old karmic patterns for us all. So I always just like to drop out of our head and drop down into our heart. Just taking a couple of nice deep breaths as you focus in the center of your heart. I even like to now really expand our fourth chakra to embrace, encompass, connect to the high heart. So there's another little chakra up here right under my hummingbird and right kind of where the thymus is, but it's called the high heart, and it's the spiritual heart. So we're really bringing the fourth chakra and the high heart together and creating one big, expansive, strong heart. So just letting yourself feel that opening and expanding as it just grows with ease. And we ask the divine lords of unconditional love to help us center fully in this moment as we create this sacred space. Please wrap us in your love and protection, and allow us to travel to the highest realms of the Akasha available to us today. Please help as we lay our multidimensional heart open to divine love and release all resistance. Lords of the Akashic Record, please guide us to the deepest truth we can access now. Support us in healing and releasing that which no longer serves on our true path. We give great thanks for the divine love and support and healing on this journey today. So let yourself experience the column of Akashic energy, light, and a love that is encircling you. It may look kind of like this silvery blue column of light. It may feel like warmth, may feel like a warm breeze or a cool breeze. I see it touch from the Akashic records. It comes down around us all, down to the earth, connecting into Gaia as we're creating this energy of a bridge between heaven and earth, between the Akashic records and Gaia. And we're bringing all of us into this energy today. And we ask the record keepers to help us to go back throughout time space. We really move outside of time when we're in the records. And we move back 2,000, 3,000 years, even almost 4,000 years, they're saying, all the way back to some of the fall of the divine goddess temples, when the consciousness started to shift from Divine Mother as being the creator being, as women being the embodiment of creation, and where women started to be seen as less strong, less powerful. And the male energy, the warrior energy, started to grow. So it seems in the beginning it was a little bit more of a consciousness, of a concept that women weren't as strong. Of course, we were nursing babies, we were pregnant, we were definitely more vulnerable in so many times in our lives. And so we just want to go back actually into that time and that energy and start to detangle that old belief, that conscious and unconscious belief that became a very strong collective belief that women are the weaker sex, right? And so the way the record keepers show it to me is it looks like roots or like line. It's almost like lines that they're pulling out, that we're detangling from all the way back thousands and thousands of years. They're just collecting that energy, pulling it back, pulling it out of our history, out of the timeline that we've been on, out of all of these places that have affected us, making women feel less than, making us feel like we're the weaker sex, and really putting men in this more powerful role of strength. And so, and that strength eventually often kind of migrated or transformed into an abuse of power. So there's one thing about balancing power. Women have power and men have power. We just show them differently. But when power gets out of balance, either way, it's not for the highest good of humanity. It's not for the highest good of the community or the family. And so we're really pulling out all of that old energy that's been in this story of humanity, and we release it back to source. The record keepers take it back and really burn it up and recycle it for the highest good of all concerned, because everything is energy. And when we can remove it and release it, recycle it, burn it up, transmute it, transform it in this divine source energy of the Akashic field and the records, it gets rewritten, recycled for the highest good of all concerned. So just let yourself feel into that and notice how that energy may be feeling in your body or energy field. If there's old past life stories that show up or not, you may just be sitting calmly, not noticing much of anything. But you may notice tomorrow that you have a little different relationship to someone in your life. Maybe someone who's a little more aggressive or abusive. And you feel you've got the strength now to stand up to them, not in an aggressive, out of, kind of out of control way, but in standing in your soul power, standing in alignment to the truth of who you are. So letting all of that energy dissipate. And then I want to go back into really the fall of the divine feminine temples, where the temples were broken up by warriors, where our towns and villages were often crushed or burned, where women were enslaved, and children were enslaved if they were lucky enough to live. And we were often literally turned into slaves of some kind, or prostitutes. And so we want to clear and do some major healing and releasing around that old story, because it often keeps women feeling like they need to stay small to stay safe. And there's another piece I want to work on, but let's do this this piece first. So we go back into these past lives where we were hurt or harmed, where we were enslaved, where our friends and family members may have been killed, traumatized, our villages were burned, our temples were broken down. And we ask the record keepers, our record keepers, to uplift and bring that emotional pain to completion. And we erase that emotional pain right out of our bodies, and the physical pain, because often there was physical pain and trauma. We may have been beaten or whipped, or something may have broken. We suffered much physical pain through so many of our lifetimes. And so we want to clear and release that physical pain. And so we clear that throughout those lifetimes, 3,000, 2,500, 2,000 years ago. And further, it's, wherever it is for you, we ask the record keepers to go into your life and your history and your timeline, and start to clear and release that physical pain and that emotional pain through all time space continuum. Good. So that starts, we ground that all out. We let that recycle right through Mother Earth, right down into the earth, to be recycled for the highest good of all concerned, for our highest good. And we also ask the record keepers to burn, to delete, to release any soul contracts we had with anyone from those times in our history that are stuck outside of time and space, where there's pain and trauma. Maybe there's hate or anger or blame of the people who hurt us or enslaved us. And we want to release that now. Because when we hold on to that blame or that anger, that hurt, that hatred, it still affects us today, even if that was 3,000 years ago. So we want to clear and release that emotional pain, which could be any of those emotions. And so we can release those through all time space continuum, freeing ourselves up to literally hold more light now. So bringing that in and down into our bodies, the light, the new light. We create space, and then we fill ourselves with the highest and best Akashic record, wisdom and information we can now hold. Now that we cleared some space, we cleared some old emotional pain and trauma from 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, so that we can bring in the highest and best energy, information, and wisdom that we can receive in our bodies now. So we really kind of do this outside of time and space as we're going back and folding time and bringing in the highest Akashic wisdom, energy, and light from the records that we can now hold. And we also want to clear any group contracts that we had with anyone back then. So we just want to release all contracts and all group contracts. And let's release any vows that we made, whether that's a vow of retaliation. You know, it's like I vow to get you back. That's not useful anymore. We want to let all those vows go. We want to release any vows that we've made to stay hidden and stay small so we don't experience that anymore or ever again. We want to release those vows of hiding so that we can step out there in a bigger way and share our gifts and talents with the world. So clearing and releasing the group contracts, the soul contracts, and the vows through all time space continuum for the highest good of all concerned. Whew. And we recycle that down through Gaia, and the record keepers lift it up and release it back into source energy. So we kind of release and recycle energy kind of in both ways. One through the body down into the earth, and in the higher energies, really back into the Akashic records and back into source energy. So that feels better. So this is all about helping us to rebalance male-female energy. And so the other kind of part of that dichotomy is often that when our villages fell, when we as women were enslaved, and you might be in a male body now, but you may have been in a female body at that time, or maybe you were one of the warriors. Doesn't matter, we do it all, right? So there may be a part of that old emotional pain and trauma as the warrior who was killing women and children. We didn't always want to do these things, right? We were often ordered to do these things. So that's important to know. So whether you're in a male body or a female body now, it doesn't matter. We live hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives. So in some way or another, I would suggest that we have experienced this in some version right through the last couple thousand years. And it might have been 2,000 or 1,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago. But we change. I would say that most of us live 60-40 male-female or female-male, depending on what your preference is as a soul, or it might be a 70-30 split. It's more rare for me to see someone who's like 80% male and 20% female, or 80% female and 20% male. It's rare. It's much more rare to have that kind of higher that higher version, whatever you say, of being male female. I would say that most of us do a little bit more of a 60-40 or 70-30 split. Just my noticing, just in another aside of information. But what happened back in those days is that often the women fought for a higher position in the world, right? And so if my choice was slave, you know, kitchen slave or prostitute, I would fight to get close to the general or the higher ups in the war, in the army, higher ups in the group. I would much rather be the prostitute of the general than the general prostitute for all those working guys, right? So this is what happened with women, is that we start to fight amongst ourselves to get a better position in the really screwed up society we were now stuck in as a slave. So what I found that that did is it really set women up to be much more competitive among themselves. And we often wonder why. Why don't women like other women? You ever notice that? How many times have you said, you know, I have so many women friends who have said, I really prefer men. Women are just too, whatever, catty, too not nice, too unreal, too whatever it might be. And I've heard this again and again and again throughout my life, certainly, and have seen it play out in different sorts of relationships. Of course, we have all had these different sorts of experiences. So the record keepers say this is one of the places that this competition started. Back way before that, often women were, I mean, you know, I'm going to say that because throughout history, it's been a challenge. And so even when we were the divine feminine and we were much more honored in the world, there were still often women fighting to be the married to the king or the higher up, or, you know, trying to have a better position in life, right? So that we weren't so poor, that we weren't struggling. I'd rather, right, marry the guy that's running the company than the guy who's, you know, at the bottom of that totem pole. So throughout life, there has definitely always been competition. But what the record keepers say is that when the temples fell, when women were really taken out of their higher divine feminine position as the creators, right? We wouldn't have life without women creating babies, and men helping to create babies. But, you know, life would not go on without both of us. We should be in equal balance. And so when those temples fell, when women became slaves, prostitutes, and subservient, when men stepped into much more physical power and strength, and that giving them the way to create a better life for themselves, women start to fight among themselves to save themselves. And so this energy of competition among women is something I'd like to do some work around today with everybody. So we ask the record keepers to take us back outside of time and space, back into all the different lifetimes in which we fought against other women to get the better position, where we stabbed someone in the back in order to be seen, where we tripped another woman so that we could get to the head of the line and maybe, you know, get to meet the general when he's touring about, right? So all of these kind of stories throughout time, we do these things again and again to survive. As a lot of it's really, truly about survival. And again, it's so important for us to understand none of this is about judgment. None of it is about right or wrong or good or bad. Karma is not about punishment. We're not punished for having been aggressive, for tripping that other woman, for even maybe stabbing her in the back physically. We're not literally punished for it, but it means that the cycle goes around and around until we can learn the lesson, until we can learn to be compassionate and to be forgiveness, until we can learn to play nice and love each other and hold each other up instead of squash each other down. So we've just had a couple thousand years of fighting amongst ourselves, squashing each other down. And it's time for women to get out there and support each other, to be the support that we need, to get equal jobs, equal pay for equal jobs, to support each other in so many different ways, and to release all of the old emotional pain and trauma around survival. So that's what the record keepers are doing. And we want to clear the survival energy. We want to clear the emotional pain. We want to clear the of course, tons of emotional pain about losing our families and going from a much higher place into a very low energetic place in the world. And then we want to clear any of the blame and the shame and the guilt that we've experienced and the fear that gets wrapped around all of that. So all of this emotional pain, we just kind of ball it up into what I call emotional pain, so I can kind of release it in a ball. And the record keepers recycle it for the highest good of all concerned. And we again clear and release any vows we made with other women to be better than them, to, you know, kind of get it our way. And so we want to clear any of those vows, any of those soul contracts, any and all of those group contracts that we have with other souls, other women, other people around kind of being the aggressor to get our way, to survive. And so clearing and releasing all of that competition that we've had for so long so that we can come together as sisters, creating beautiful new families and circles of divine feminine energy, coming together so that as we bring ourselves into an exalted state of light and love and compassion, we can then balance with the male energy with much greater ease and grace. We can let go of the pain, the trauma, and the struggle and move into that place of grace. So we ask the record keepers to fill us up now that we've created more space through those last, again, 4,000 years of struggle. We bring all of the high energy into our bodies now. We ask the record keepers to fill us with the highest Akashic light, wisdom, and energy that we can now hold. And we invite that to integrate down into our physical bodies, all the way down into a cellular level, strengthening our physical bodies now, bringing that all the way down through in every way, all the way down into our legs and our feet as we ground it into the earth. Again, being the physical bridge between heaven and earth, or source and Gaia. So that feels so beautiful. And I thank you for joining me in this energy healing today. We thank the masters, teachers, and beings of light for the love, the wisdom, and the guidance. And we close and lock the Akashic records for everyone for now. And so it is. Blessed be. Thank you for joining me. If you would like more information about having an Akashic record reading with me, or finding my books, or the classes I teach, of course, it's all on akashicknowing.com. Lots and lots of more information there. So I look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, bye for now.